Well, hello again. Thanks for stopping by. Now, recently we talked a lot about oil filters. And of course, a lot of those oil filters, I just don't see me purchasing again. It's not going to happen. But today, we're going to talk about oil. So, when I started this little challenge of mine, this experiment, the question was, excuse me, which lasts longer, the oil or the oil filter? Can you run the same oil for 10,000, 20,000 miles and just change the filter? Or should you change the oil and keep the filter? Which one is it? So, after the last oil filter change, well, I've changed it since then, but before then, the one right before then, I left the oil in there. It was 5:30. Actually, I had switched brands. I switched brands from Valvoline to Castrol, the Castrol GTX Full Synthetic, and I left that in there for an extended period of time. How do I say this? Yeah, let's just say it. The oil flushed out a lot of the broken up contaminant carbon buildup that loosened up, washed it all out of the engine down into the oil pan. The problem comes in, what do you do with all this dirt and debris and contamination in the oil, sitting in the oil pan? You gotta drain it. But if it's not time to change the oil, then what do? Can you get away with going the full 10,000 miles or 5,000 miles with just changing the oil filter? So I ran my experiment. I went through quite a few different oil filters using the same oil. I didn't change the oil, just the oil filter. Well, the conclusion to that story was that no. If you use a good quality oil, it's going to clean out, wash out all the contaminant in the engine, around the pistons, around the cylinder walls, the valves, and it's going to all get washed down into the oil pan. But when you go to crank that car up again, first stop, oil filter. The oil filter has to be good enough to withstand the pressures of that engine running day to day. Sometimes people go 3 or 4 different places. So you're turning it off, turning it on, turning it off, turning it on. You're going 35, 50 miles an hour, 60. So that oil filter needs to be able to keep up. But what's a good brand of oil filter? If you look at my previous videos, you'll definitely know what I consider to be a good oil filter. Even some of the people like companies like Fram, they make multiple versions of oil filters. But not all of them are the same, lamb chop. Not all of them are the same. So, the Fram Ultra Synthetic is more for conventional to synthetic blend, whereas the Fram Titanium is more so synthetic blend to full synthetic. So if you use a conventional oil, you can get away with using the Fram Ultra. But if you're using synthetic blend or full synthetic, I would suggest getting the Fram Titanium. Now, outside of Fram, as you see here, I would get the mobile. Mobile one is pretty decent. The micro guard, no, 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 no. I would not get that one at all. And of course, the Purelator 1. Would I get the Purelator 1 over the mobile one? Tough question, but the mobile one narrowly beats out the Purelator 1. And you have to take in mind, this is one of the worst engines in GM's lineup. Not just Chevy, but in GM's lineup, I've heard nothing but complaints about the 2.4 Ecotec motor. So I am trying my best to extend the life longevity of this motor. And that brings us to oil choices. Okay, so none of these companies, first of all, let me say that none of these companies are sponsoring me. I got all these fine products with my own money. Now, that being said, when using the Valvoline, I noticed that I was losing a quart of oil. After doing some research, it turns out that if you lose a quart of oil between oil changes, that's acceptable. That's not acceptable to me. I don't care how you design the engine. Losing a quart of oil when it clearly states it's supposed to be 5 quarts, and I have to go 4 quarts for the next 800 to 1,000 miles before I change my oil? No, I have issue with that. I really do. So, as I'm losing this oil, I realized the only way I can stop this knocking that my engine is doing is to get another quart of oil to last me to the next oil change. I did it twice, you guys. 2 oil changes, I've had to get a quart of oil. Now, the Syntec, which is, as you can tell, sold at O'Reilly's, is pretty decent. It's pretty decent. It quieted down the engine some. Actually quieted down the engine a lot. Not initially. It was like maybe a day into it. You know, that first day I poured it in, it was still rattling and doing this craziness. Then after that, the next day, it started to quiet down. But the next time I had to do that, when I tried the Castrol GTX, I saw results within hours, not days, hours. Within a few hours, it started to quiet down. And I noticed the difference when I was sitting at the stoplight, and all of a sudden, did the car stop? What's going on? So when I pulled off from the stoplight, I could still hear that ticking and tapping, but it had went down. It got lower. The sound wasn't as loud. Like, okay, this stuff really works. Now, at the end of my cycle, it started to tap again. But it wasn't as bad. I still had most of the oil in there, which lead me to believe that just maybe I need to find out if they have a better version of this GTX full synthetic. So, you know me, I got online, did my research. Turns out they had two improvements: a Castrol Edge and a Castrol Edge Extended. And I'm like, man, this is wonderful. So you mean I can get better quality, more? I can get more of what I already got with this Castrol full synthetic? But my engine was dirty as... it was quite dirty. It was quite filthy. And I didn't want to put a better quality oil in there just yet. And the reason why I say that is because when you put a better quality oil in your engine, it tends to clean better. And if you don't have a good enough oil filter to capture all that extra dirt, it's going to still be in your engine, or it's going to get flushed down into your oil pan, which means you'll have to drain it and refill it with another oil. So what I did is I went and tried another brand of oil, something that is decent but not as good as the Castrol. So while doing my experiments with oil filters, I was using the Castrol GTX full synthetic, which on its own strength worked pretty good, but it just wasn't strong enough for what I want to do for my driving habits. Now, I decided through my research that I would get an updated version to what I already have, because it works. It just doesn't work as good as I want it to. So instead of going to a completely different brand, which means you have to pay whatever price that they're asking for, I wanted to keep it within that same brand name. I found what I was looking for. But again, I wasn't quite ready to switch to the other Castrol because I want to clean out the engine. I want to clean out the fuel system. I want to do all that before I put this better oil in there. But I still need an oil change. And that's when I saw this one. 530 full synthetic by Quaker State. Now, Quaker State has been around for a long time. Long time. Very long time. But Quaker State was always one of those brands nobody trusted because they said it left a lot of sludge in the engine. Like sludge. So I did research online, went into stores, looked at the bottles, read the information on the back, went back online again, read articles, watched YouTube videos. I mean, I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I'm talking, I watched Engineer Explain, I watched Scotty Kilmer, I watched a couple of people I can't even remember right now. So I said, okay, it's inexpensive. It doesn't cost that much. And it checks most of the boxes. Now, what I can tell you from previous articles that I've read is that most of the oil, if not all of the motor oil sold in America anyway, is set to a certain standard, regardless of who makes it. Let's see. So, for gasoline engines certified. Now, this says the same thing for gasoline engines certified. That's because the government has told these companies that, hey, you have to come up with a standard for all oils, regardless of who's making it. So that's what they did. They came out with a standard for all oils. Now, within each company, they always try to top what they did before. So like with the Castrol, you got the GTX full synthetic, and you got the Edge. Each one is better than the one before it. And the same thing with the Quaker State. You got the Quaker State, you got the Quaker State high mileage, and you got the Quaker State full synthetic. Now, I've recently changed the oil, and I used the Quaker State. So far, I've had no problems with it actually starting up. It hesitates, but it starts up. It runs. Some days, like when it's real cold, it doesn't, I get that slight hesitation and that rattling, that tapping. After I've driven it around for a while, then it clears up and it's not loud at all. So I'm thinking that might be more of a oil filter problem than the actual oil itself. Now, in the car world, you should always have a backup in case you can't get. What can I say? I watched a lot of videos, and especially the videos with the mechanics, and they're working on. And you see all these tools. Some of those tools are the same thing. They do the same job. My take on it is that they have more than one set. If something breaks and you're in the middle of a job, you need to go into that box, grab that other wrench out. You know, why have one 10 millimeter wrench when you can have two 10 millimeter wrenches? And that's my theory with my oil. Why just have one when you can get another one? And sometimes when you go to the store, when you go to these outlets, or you go to Walmart, they don't have what you want. You're dead set on getting that one brand. Nothing else is good enough. And they're out. So now you got to go clear across the county to go find it. No. Find you two brands. Even when it comes down to your oil filters. Find you two brands that you are comfortable with running in your vehicle. You got your main brand that you use. And then if they run out, if they don't have it, then you go to, you got your go-to brand. So, my main brand is Castrol. But if they don't have Castrol, I'm going to go with Quaker State. It works for me. It'll get me by. As far as I can tell, I've had no major problems. What the heck? So, in conclusion, I will be updating my Castrol synthetic oil to the next level. I'll be getting the Castrol Edge because I know the Castrol works. It doesn't have as much detergent, cleaning agents as I would like, but it's got enough to the point where, man, having a cheap oil filter is just you asking for trouble. You're really asking for trouble. So my main brand is Castrol. My backup brand is Quaker. And as far as the oil filters, that's an ongoing experiment. That is an ongoing investigation. So, with all that being said, stay safe, drive safe, and I'll see you out on the road.